We live in an age where everyone wants to be heard. Everyone has something they want to say, something they want to prove, and the greatest fear is being ignored. Amidst this countless noise, have you ever asked yourself, what would happen if we chose silence? When we stop talking, others become uneasy. They don't know what we are thinking, whether we agree or disagree. Silence makes them lose control. And it is precisely then that we truly regain our control. Silence is not avoidance. It is a way to see more clearly what is happening, to observe instead of reacting, to understand instead of arguing. More than 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and great Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "Let the tranquility of your mind become your strength." Because when you know how to pause before reacting, you are no longer led by emotion, but begin to lead yourself. The Stoics understood that not everything requires a response, and speaking up does not always prove strength. Silence, to them, is a form of mental discipline, a hidden sword. The less it is used, the sharper it becomes. In this video, we will reveal 12 situations in which choosing silence is not just a smart action, but a decision that can change your life. You will discover how this strategic silence can turn criticism into an opportunity for growth, protect your inner peace from provocation, help your words carry weight and be more respected when you do speak. If you have ever been tired of arguing or regretted saying too much, stay until the end of the video and don't miss any part, because perhaps what you are seeking is not found in the voice, but in the moment you know when to be silent. Let's start with the first situation, one that everyone has likely experienced. Number 1, when facing criticism. This is the hardest challenge to inner peace, being criticized, especially when the criticism is completely unfounded. The instinctive reaction is to want to counterattack with sharp words, to immediately clear your name. However, the Stoics teach that acting on that urge to respond is a mistake, because as soon as you reply, you show that you care more about the other person's negative opinion than your own character. You have voluntarily participated in the emotional battle set up by the provocateur. Instead, see silence as a declaration of your own self-mastery. Epictetus, the great sage, once said, "It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." This quote is the key. The words of others are merely sound, an external event. It is your hasty judgment about that sound that causes distress. Silence here is a proactive action, helping you separate the words from your judgment. So, when facing criticism, what should you do with this silence? Turn it into a space for deep self-reflection. In silence, start by evaluating the truthfulness of the criticism. Ask yourself, is this true? If it is, quietly accept the lesson. Silence transforms the criticism into constructive feedback. If the criticism is unfounded, use the silence to remind yourself. The opinions of others are outside your control and cannot harm you without your permission. That is when you realize true strength is not expressed in words. It is demonstrated by how you maintain your tranquility, your soul untouched by the noise. Silence is not weakness. It is the most powerful evidence of inner self-control. Number 2, when dealing with anger. Anger is an uncontrollable fire. It turns you into a slave, causing you to say words that you will regret just minutes later. Seneca called anger a brief madness. It strips away reason and forces you to act based on the rawest emotion. Silence here is an essential act of self-defense. It is the barrier that protects your mind from self-inflicted destruction. The Stoics believe that extending the time before reacting is the most potent antidote to anger. When you feel anger rising, use silence to create a gap between the external stimulus and your response. This is the space where reason can return. The Stoics do not try to suppress the emotion. They use silence to cool down their judgment of that emotion. That gap, brief as it may be, is where you decide whether you will respond with reason or with instinct. This silence is a tool for contemplating consequences. In the moment of holding back your words, ask yourself, if I say this, will it solve the problem or just cause more damage? Silence helps you see the long-term results of anger, rather than just the immediate satisfaction, thereby helping you escape the cycle of regret. When the anger passes, people may forget whether you were right or wrong, but they will remember how you reacted. And timely silence often creates a deeper impression than any rebuttal. At the same time, silence helps you focus on futility. Anger is often directed at things outside your control. Venting your anger at an unchangeable object or event is completely useless. Use silence to remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. Only respond to what you can change. Silence during anger is the ultimate sign of inner strength. It proves that you master your own mind, and you have won the biggest battle before it could explode into words. Number 3. When facing provocation or insults, there are words that don't make you angry. They hurt you. Someone makes a sarcastic remark, a colleague deliberately undermines you in front of others, or someone chuckles when you express your opinion. Sometimes, they don't need to be loud. A mere glance is enough to weigh heavily on your heart. You stand there, amidst the crowd, feeling as though your worth has just been squeezed in their hand. You want to say something to restore justice, to show them you are not weak, that you deserve respect. But the more you think, the more you realize that if you retaliate, you are playing right into what they want to drag you down. That moment is not one of anger, but one of hurt mixed with pride. And right there, you have a choice. Either act to be proven right, or remain silent to preserve your dignity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When a person wrongs you, consider that he is acting according to his nature." By understanding this, you realize that the words of others do not truly define you. They only reflect what they carry within: insecurity, envy, or the fear of being overshadowed. And if you allow those things to enter your mind, you are letting others control your peace. Therefore, instead of arguing, choose silence. Hold your head high and walk away with the utmost composure you can muster. Your silence is not weakness. It is an invisible wall that causes the attacks to bounce back onto the speaker. You do not need to prove anything with words. Let your actions, time, and composure speak for themselves. Stoicism views silence as a form of inner strength. When you can listen without getting emotionally involved, you have won a battle that many never conquer: the battle with the ego. The next time someone tries to provoke you, just smile. Don't reply. Because in the very moment you choose silence, you hold firm to what they cannot touch: your dignity and your self-mastery. Number 4. When coping with loss, loss often arrives without warning. A phone call in the middle of the night, a brief text message, or just a silent gaze that speaks of farewell. Everything seems to remain, but in a moment, the world suddenly becomes empty. You stand in a familiar room, everything is as it was. Only the most precious thing has left. That person, that opportunity, or the belief that once made you think you could move forward. The peak of the pain is when you don't know what to do with the remaining silence. You want to call out names, want to do something to bring the past back. But the harder you try, the more you realize some things cannot be salvaged, no matter what you say or do. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Do not complain about things that are outside your control." This is not to deny the emotion, but to remind us that everything in life, including loss, is a natural part of existence. We cannot hold on to anything forever. but we can preserve the way we live after it leaves. Silence when facing loss is not about pretending to be strong. It is about giving the heart space to rearrange itself, allowing the sorrow to subside, and then gradually dissipate like mist when the sun rises. When the sadness settles, you will realize it is loss itself that teaches us to cherish every moment of life. We truly understand the value of light only after walking through the darkness. Similarly, only after experiencing separation do we learn to love more, live kinder, and be stronger than ever. Loss does not crush us. It trains us to become a more resilient version of ourselves. And when we are calm enough to accept, we will understand that every pain that once brought us to tears is quietly teaching us how to live more fully every day. Number 5. When hearing rumors or slander. In a world full of information and envy, there will be times when we must confront baseless rumors or slander aimed at our reputation. In that moment, you feel intense outrage, wanting to respond immediately, wanting to seek out the person who said those words to clarify everything. But the Stoics teach that chasing after rumors is voluntarily handing over power to the undeserving. Remember, every time you react, you are adding wind to the fire of the rumor. In this situation, silence is an act of self-protection. It protects you from being dragged into a meaningless game, where the lie is nourished by your very reaction. The Stoics believe that truth does not need to be shouted. Instead of speaking out to argue, let your composure become the ironclad evidence of your character. Use silence to create a necessary distance. Rumors or slander are things outside your control. They are the property of others. Silence helps you cut the emotional cord connecting you to that toxicity. Remember, only your actions belong to you, while the words of others belong to them. When facing slander, use stillness to focus on the nature of the action. Instead of trying to change the public's mind, ask yourself, have I lived true to my values? If you know the truth about yourself, that peace is a possession that cannot be stolen by any lie. Marcus Aurelius advised that we should spend less time worrying about what others think. Instead, use that time to reinforce the integrity that gossip cannot touch. Your resolute silence will cause the rumors to lose their power because they cannot find the fuel to ignite. Silence is not an admission, but a sign of a soul that has achieved invulnerability. By remaining silent in the face of rumors, you have chosen a life shaped by inner virtue, rather than by the fleeting and baseless judgments of the crowd. Number 6. When you are misunderstood. Have you ever done the right thing, only to have others think you were wrong? You only wanted to help, but they thought you were interfering. You chose silence to keep the peace. But that very silence was viewed as weakness. Being misunderstood is one of the loneliest feelings. It is not loud, not violent, but it makes you withdraw, as if every word could be twisted into different versions. The more you try to explain, the more complicated things become. Not because you spoke wrongly, but because the listener has decided to believe what they want to believe. Some people do not listen to understand. They listen to react. Some things are best answered by time, by the consistency in how you live, rather than by explanation. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, if someone judges you wrongly, do not rush to anger. They only see what their mind allows them to. Because others always view you through their own lens, and no one can break that lens with words. The truth does not need to be expressed in words. It exists in your consistency, in the kindness you maintain, even when doubted. Living authentically is not always easy. Sometimes it makes you misunderstood. But then you will realize the important thing is not who understands you, but whether you are living true to yourself. When you are honest, When you do not bend yourself to please others, of course, some people will not understand. Some will object, some will leave. And that is completely normal. Choosing to be silent when misunderstood is not avoidance, but a way to protect your inner peace. Let time and the way you live speak for itself. One day, those who are sincere will understand, and those who do not wish to understand will no longer matter to you. Number 7. When you face injustice. No one goes through life without having felt injustice. You give your best effort, but you are overlooked. You live kindly, yet you are the one who is doubted. You speak the truth, but that very act causes you harm. Injustice hurts us not only because of the outcome, but because it makes the things we believe to be right feel fragile. The initial reaction is anger. You want to speak out, to prove yourself, to make people understand. But then you realize, the harder you try to fight for justice, the more you get lost in an endless battle. Every explanation is easily misunderstood. Every act of resistance is easily distorted. Even if you are right, the world does not always side with the truth. You try one more time, then another. But it seems the more you explain, the more you are misunderstood. Every effort to regain fairness only exhausts you. And then, you no longer want to argue because you understand that some things, the harder you try to protect them, the easier they break. Nelson Mandela, the former South African president who was imprisoned for 27 years for daring to fight against a system of racial segregation, understood this better than anyone. They took away his freedom, his youth, and even his right to be called by his own name. But when he walked out of prison, he carried no hatred. He chose forgiveness, because he knew, if he held on to anger in his heart, he was not truly free. The Stoics do not see silence as weakness. They see it as a conscious choice, when you understand that not everything needs a response. That silence does not come from resignation, but from the courage not to let the external darkness overwhelm your inner light. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how you react. Because sometimes the strongest way to confront injustice is to silently walk through it, without letting it take away the peace in your heart. Number 8. When facing adversity. There are periods in life when you unexpectedly fall into silence. Not because no one is listening, but because some things are too difficult to put into words. A failed project, a health issue that causes all plans to collapse, or a major stumble in the area where you were once most confident. Adversity arrives, without warning and without leaving any easy choices. In those moments, you just want to speak up. Not to complain, but just so someone understands how hard you have tried. You want a sympathetic look, an acknowledgement that this pain is real and deserves to be heard by someone. But the more you crave understanding, the more easily you lose connection with yourself. Because when we rely on external reactions to confirm our internal worth, we are placing our strength in the hands of others. The Stoics do not deny the pain, nor force you to pretend to be strong. They simply remind you, what helps us get back up is not the comfort of others, but the pause where we courageously and honestly face ourselves. Silence, at this point, is not avoidance. It is a moment of stillness for you to restructure your inner self. It allows you to separate yourself from panic and to observe the adversity as an inevitable part of the journey. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That is not a rigid philosophy. It is a way of life. View adversity as the soul's training gym, where every ache is forging you to become more resilient. Silence now helps you distinguish what is real and what is merely the exaggeration of fear. It helps you return to your core, where your will, discipline, and character cannot be touched by circumstances. You don't need anyone to witness what you have been through, because true strength lies not in the praise, but in the moment when you don't complain, don't blame. You just quietly stand up and keep moving forward. And if someone asks how you manage to overcome it, you can answer with a quiet smile. Because they don't know that. That very silence saved you from despair and from yourself. Number 9. When reflecting or making a big decision, there are times in life when you stand at a crossroads where every choice has a price. Take one step and you might lose something familiar. But if you stand still, you might lose yourself. Important decisions are often not loud. They arrive when you are alone, in the dead of night, or during a seemingly ordinary day, when a small thought unexpectedly leads you to the big question, ultimately, what is the right thing for me? In that moment, the thing that makes you most easily lose your way is not a lack of information, but too many voices crowding inside. The voice of expectation, of advice from people not living your life, of the fear of failure and the craving for acceptance. They create a fog in the mind, making it impossible to distinguish what you truly want from what you are being forced to become. That is why the Stoics always choose silence before life's major turning points. Not because they lack decisiveness, but because they understand. The right decision does not come from rushing, but from inner clarity. Silence is not emptiness. It is a space for you to listen to what is truly happening in your mind. Epictetus once taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid regarding external things. Step back in silence to observe. Does this belong to me? Does it bring me closer to the person I want to be? Or is it just a reaction to fear? Silence gives you distance, and from that distance you gain a clearer perspective. No one can decide for you, just as no one can take responsibility for the consequences. Therefore, what you need is not the opinion of the crowd, but inner sobriety. And if you are still enough to look deep, you will realize the right decision is not the perfect decision. It is the decision you can live with peace, even when it is not easy. Because the moment you dare to choose what is right for you, even in silence, even if no one understands yet, is the moment you begin to become the clearest and most steadfast version of yourself. Number 10. When others boast or brag. There are times when you are in a conversation and someone just won't stop talking about their achievements. They boast about money, status, relationships, or things they consider superior. The story revolves around one single subject, them. And you, without even asking, have to listen to that ideal life. You start to feel small. A part of you wants to object, wants to recount what you have accomplished, just to regain a sense of balance. But then you realize, if you do that, aren't you also participating in that invisible race? The Stoics understand that boasting does not come from stability. It is often the way people try to convince themselves of their own worth. A truly peaceful person does not need to prove anything. And you, if you choose silence, it is because you have seen this and decided not to reflect it with a reaction. Silence here is not endurance. It is a way of withdrawing yourself from a game you never truly wanted to play. It gives you space to hold firm to your inner worth, rather than letting others define it with words. Seneca once said, "True achievement does not require the recognition of others, for it is its own reward." And you too do not need to prove anything, because you know where you are going, and you are walking on steady feet, not on applause. So, when others are boasting, just smile and remain silent, not because you have nothing to say, but because you don't need to say it. While they are seeking a glance to feel valuable, you only need to look inward, where stillness is no longer a reaction, but the choice of a free person. Because sometimes, the strongest thing is not what is spoken, but what you don't need to prove to anyone. Number 11. When striving for self-improvement, there is a very specific kind of silence, not external stillness, but an inner pause when you are quietly pursuing a better version of yourself. This is the phase when you no longer want to make declarations, no longer need to affirm anything to the world. You are not seeking approval. You also don't want to boast that you are changing. You just want to live rightly, quietly, and fully. But strangely, the deeper you live with your inner values, the more you realize not everyone understands that. Some people mock you, some doubt you, some say you are being fake, trying too hard, or losing your old self. Those words can make you feel down. And there will be times when you want to speak up, not to refute, but just so someone understands that you are truly trying. But then, instead of reacting, you begin to ask yourself, am I living to be understood, or am I living to truly grow? That question causes you to become silent, not out of resignation, but because you have seen clearly. Explanations will never help others fully understand your inner journey. Every right action needs to be cultivated in stillness before it is strong enough to manifest without anyone's validation. The Stoics do not boast about their progress. They let it show through the way they live, the way they react, and the way they uphold their principles, even when no one is watching. Silence, at this point, is not detachment. It is the place where you nurture virtues that are not yet strong. It is how you protect the inner seed from the winds of judgment. It is the space for you to build discipline, perseverance, and integrity, little by little, silently yet firmly. Because self-perfection does not come from proving you are different, but from quietly moving forward, even when no one acknowledges it. Number 12. When listening to others, there are times when the most valuable thing you can offer a person is not advice nor life experience, but silence. A true silence. No interrupting, no rushing to respond, no thinking about what you should say next. Simply being there, present, listening, and allowing the other person to feel that their story is worthy of being understood. In today's world, where everyone is in a hurry to share their opinions and express their views, the person who knows how to listen becomes a rarity. Everyone wants to talk, but very few truly want to understand. And that is why, when you choose silence to listen, you are creating a space for healing. Silence is not emptiness. It is a form of connection. When you say nothing, you are inviting the other person to speak genuinely. When you do not rush to interrupt, you are allowing them to be themselves, unfiltered, uninterrupted. This silence is not passive. It requires you to overcome the instinct to speak up, to advise, to offer solutions. You put your ego aside so that you can fully place yourself in the world of the other person. This demands courage and deep respect. Not every story needs a reply, and sometimes the most important thing is not an explanation, but having someone calm enough to listen from beginning to end, without judgment. In those moments, you are not just a listener. You become a quiet mirror, reflecting the emotions of the other person gently and truthfully. Because silence, when listening, is the highest form of compassion. It is not loud, not flashy, but deep enough for someone to feel heard, to feel understood. We have just gone through 12 situations. Perhaps you have felt something, not with your reason, but with the very experience of your heart. There are times when words do not help us connect. They distance us from ourselves. There are times when a reaction solves nothing. It only deepens the wound. And there are times when the most courageous thing is not to speak up, but to step back and preserve the inner stillness as a safe haven for your soul. We do not learn to be silent to become cold or avoidant. We learn so that we know. Every time you choose not to react to the external world, you are responding to yourself with awareness and self-respect. If you feel this journey has touched something inside you, please leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe to Stoic Journey to continue nurturing inner strength, discipline, and clarity together every day. Thank you, and see you in the next videos.